Hello, this is Laura Gill here from the Attachment and Trauma Treatment Center for Healing. I'm just coming off a fabulous roundtable on talking about tips and techniques for supporting emotional regulation in children and youth, as well as in parents themselves. And I thought I would add a few more techniques that may be helpful. We were talking again about the window of tolerance and trying to bring down that excess arousal when we're kind of revving too high or feeling too full, kind of bringing that arousal level down, as well as how to upregulate when people are feeling shut down to help stimulate and bring that arousal level up. We talked about several great techniques for regulating the nervous system, and I just want to highlight a few more. So when that arousal level is high, doing things like even raindrops, right? So on the head, being able to kind of imagine these little raindrops falling, right? And as the raindrops are falling, that anxiety level is coming down. It's a great technique that I learned from friends Kristen and Liliana. If we want to stimulate or bring that arousal up, bouncing on a mini trampoline, jumping, right? Discharging that big energy. If we want to provide comfort, nurture, connection, connecting with the heart, right? Connecting with the heart is always a great resource for us. This actually releases oxytocin. It is calming and regulating, but it's also nurturing. So placing our hand on the heart, there's a fabulous book that I really like for children. It's got great short stories and it's called 6 Healing Sounds. They're just brief stories, but it's a combination of movement as well as reframing messages. It speaks to common things that children experience and adds in some Qigong as well. So for one of them, we can put our hands on our heart and we can imagine that we're breathing in love. And as we breathe out, we can imagine we're breathing out impatience, and we're going to make it with a ha sound, so H-A-W. So breathing in love and breathing out impatience. Ha. Breathing in love and breathing out impatience. Ha. And just allowing ourselves to move through that. I did this with a client recently and they said, you know, I can feel that energy leaving my body, that negative energy. And that's what we want. We want to be able to release that big energy that's in there. If we've got too much energy, another thing we can do is bounce it out. So mini trampolines are great for this, but we can also vigorously shake it out, right? And imagine that we're taking that big energy and just shaking it out, or another Qigong technique, right? We're just pushing that energy down and out and allowing that movement. Movement really is so important. We truly are wired to move. If you, like me, are on the computer all day, or your children are on the computer all day between school, social time, work, whatever it may be, building in conscious, intentional movement breaks is so critical. I have just little weights, right? If you're on a teleconference and you don't have to be on video, we can be moving our body, standing up behind the chair, doing some squats, right? Or going up on our tippy toes. All of this is great for getting our body moving instead of just sitting and, you know, focusing on the screen. We can still focus our attention, and in fact, it often helps us to focus our attention better when we're able to get some of that movement in. Another great technique that, again, this was shared by my friends Kristen and Liliana, who did a workshop for us recently, is TIP. So how can I use TIP to change my affective state? So the T stands for temperature. How can I use heat, cool, to shift that affective state? So it may be a hot water bottle, as Stephen Terrell talked about in our recent video session. It may be an ice pack. It may be just even splashing some cool water on my face. It may be going outside and feeling that air connecting with my face and just shifting into a fresh energy, fresh air space. The I stands for the intense exercise. So again, it may be going for a run, it may be bouncing on a trampoline, shaking it out, right? Stomping it out, but releasing that big energy, getting the body moving, running on the spot, jumping jacks. Oh my gosh, like skipping. All of these are great ways to get the heart rate up and discharge excess energy that may be building up. P stands for paced breathing. So I've introduced lots of different breath techniques in other workshops, so I probably won't go back through them today, but just that fluid breath, right? Even a fluid breath into the count of 5, out to the count of 5, or into the count of 6, out to the count of 6. So we can just try to elongate that breath in and out, nice and fluid and rhythmic. Progressive muscle relaxation is the other P. So, tightening up the muscle groups, tightening up even my face, and then release, right? Tight, 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 and release. And that can be a really good way for helping our body prepare for relaxation. Great to do before bed if we've been holding tension. Another one is, and this is something I learned in Qigong as well, but just cupping the back of the neck. So when we're on the computer, we're often looking down, or, our neck is sore. So being able to just cup behind your neck, right? Give it a gentle squeeze, do both sides, right? It actually feels so good. I sometimes don't want to stop doing it because it feels so nice. And that can be a nice way to tend to some of the muscle tension that's there. If you have bands, exercise bands, like the physiotherapy bands, you can use those to stretch, right? To open and expand, to stretch behind you. You can do a tense and release where you pull one side and then you let it go, right? You pull and then you let it go. Pulling up and then letting it go. So all of this is good for kind of moving that energy. I think we've spoken about Tako breathing in one of the previous video clips that I did, but I'll introduce it here again because I think it's such a great tool that can be both grounding and stimulating. For kids, we call this Tako breathing. So the idea is curling the tongue and breathing in through the tongue like a straw and out through the nose. So and that is a great way for me. I find it does both. It's grounding, but it also is stimulating. And we have energy centers, energy meridians on the roof of our mouth, as Lisa had shared with me, one of our yoga instructors that knows so much about the brain and the nervous system. Coming back to name it to tame it, that's one of the best things that we can do, whether it's grief that's coming up for you right now, whether it's losses, loss of role, loss of routine, loss of an opportunity, a wedding perhaps, or a social event or a vacation, whatever that may be for you, building in the opportunity to just notice what is there, name it, right? Allow it to be there, but also allow it to shift. And we need to be able to do this for our children as well, noticing that whatever's coming up for them, whether it seems big or small in relation to what's happening in the world, it's theirs, it's valid, and it matters. And so building in the opportunity to have discussions, to give them information so that they understand at an age-appropriate level what's happening, but also to validate and normalize the feelings and allow them to be okay is really important. Many people are asking, what should I tell my kids about COVID? I think it's really important that we are having a conversation with them and letting them know too that right now we're all doing our part to help the world to be well again, to help it to heal from this virus, to help people to heal from this virus, but people are healing. And although, yes, some people are dying from this, many, many people are also recovering. And that's what we need to understand and is so critical for children and youth and adults to be mindful of as well. There's a great book that Teresa Fraser wrote that's posted up on our website. It's www.attch.org under I think it's under our certification link, and then there's a link that says COVID resources. There are a few books and resources there that may be helpful for having conversations with your child, your youth, or even for reflecting yourself as an adult about how this is impacting. And I hope that that may be helpful for you. And lastly, I'll just say one of my favorite ways to start my day is actually with the mindfulness meditation. Often when I hit that snooze button is when I'll listen to it. So I'll take a few minutes and excuse me. One of my favorite things to do is actually to start my day with a mindfulness meditation. And what I'll do is when I hit that snooze button is that's the time that I'll put my meditation on. And even though I'm not going back to sleep and I am focusing my attention, it still feels like rest. It still feels like I'm getting that little bit of extra rest time, but I'm also helping to strengthen that prefrontal part of my brain, which really helps with that. The hand brain model that we talked about and flipping our lid, we want to strengthen this higher order part of our brain so that it can talk back to the emotionally reactive, big emotion part of the brain and calm it, right? The other piece that I think is so important right now is gratitude. We know that fear, anxiety, in times of uncertainty, our brain gravitates towards worst possible case situations. That's the amygdala, that's our security guard, and it's looking for potential threat because it wants to keep us safe. Makes sense, but unfortunately, it also suppresses our immune system. So gratitude, joy, happiness, on the other hand, is immune protective. Right? So how can we build in little moments where we can focus on the things that we're grateful for, where we can notice what brings us joy and weave that into our daily practice, even if it's just a few minutes at a time. So those are a couple of tips and techniques. I hope that that may be helpful for you or someone you know, and I wish you a gentle rest of your day.